But this morning, as we come into a time of family, the thing that we want to hearken into is this reality: you are disciple makers. Whatever your family unit looks like, you are the empowered place of the disciple maker. And there's something I stumbled upon in thinking about how do I want to express this to you this morning. And it was this realization, which is that earning your black belt in any of the martial arts does not mean you're Bruce Lee. I mean, it sounds like obvious, right? But when we think about it, we think so many times, well, especially for me, someone who is not in the martial arts community, but knows enough to know that you get your black belt, you have ascended the ranks, but not really. To receive a black belt is simply to acknowledge and tell a person that you are now a proficient student. Earning your black belt is only halfway through all of the rankings within the martial arts that you can achieve. There's still so much more to go and to learn. But so many times we see the black belt and we think, you're done, just smooth sailing from here. And I think oftentimes we accidentally take this mentality on even when it comes to our faith. And we hear about that in scripture. And so this morning, our scripture reading comes from a very familiar passage of text in First Corinthians chapter 13. But I invite you not to jump to the end. Hear the words that lead to a perhaps very well known verse of our scripture. Hear the word of the Lord this morning. It goes like this: if I speak in tongues of human beings and of angels, but I don't have love, I'm a clanging gong or a clashing cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and I know all the mysteries and everything else, and if I have such complete faith that I can move mountains, but I don't have love, I'm nothing. If I give away everything that I have and hand over my body to feel good about what I've done, but I don't have love, I receive no benefit whatsoever. Love is patient. Love is kind. It isn't jealous. It doesn't brag. It isn't arrogant. It isn't rude. It doesn't seek its own advantage. It isn't irritable. It doesn't keep a record of complaints. It isn't happy with injustice, but it is happy with the truth. Love puts up with all things, trusts in all things, hopes for all things, endures all things. Love never fails. As for prophecies, they will be brought to an end. As for tongues, they will stop. As for knowledge, it will be brought to an end. We know in part and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, what is partial will be brought to an end. When I was a child, I used to speak like a child, reason like a child, think like a child. But now that I have become a man, I've put an end to childish things. Now we see a reflection in a mirror. Then we will see face to face. Now I know partially, then I will know completely, in the same way that I have been completely known. Now faith, hope, and love remain, these three things. And the greatest of these is love. This is good news for all people. Thanks be to God. I know so many times in this passage we want to jump to all the pieces of love is patient, love is kind. We want to jump to, and these three things remain, and the greatest of them all is love. And yes, those are the climactic pieces of the text, but I want us to not miss some of the important work that happens to allow us and enable us to get to the beauty of the realization that we can be gifted with spiritual gifts and disciplines in so many areas, but if we do not hold love with it, we automatically fail. I love that it says in the text, now I know in part, then I will know in whole. This morning, a morning as we prepare for our graduates within Cleburne and Burleson and Grandview and Joshua to get ready to graduate and go off to what is next for them. So many times we think that we've equipped you. We've equipped you with so much of the faith, and now we send you out and you are on your own to figure it out, to fly or fail, to take the tools we've handed you. But we would be sorely mistaken if we treated that to mean that they have everything that we need, that they need to go on. Instead, what we should see it as is the black belt being handed. You are now a proficient student. You have the tools to go out into the world. It is up to you to put them to use. And I think that that's something that we all need that reminder of. Did you know that when it comes to the work of spiritual disciplines and how people grow in their faith, there's people who like to put numbers to these things? Not me. I don't like math. We know this. But there's others out there that are smarter than me that help progress us through the levels to say, where are we? Can you put a litmus test to where you are in your faith journey? And did you know that most adults that have grown up in the church and find themselves close to death's door have only made it to level 3 out of 7 levels? Do you know when you get to level 3 if you've grown up in the church? It's when you're getting ready to graduate high school. So many times we go through student ministry programs or we've learned so much in our spiritual formation and we get to high school and we graduate and we think, I have all the tools I need of the faith, but so many times we stop there. We choose to say, I earned the black belt and now I'm the Bruce Lee of faith. Instead, what we should see that is I have been equipped with all the tools by the church to now take my faith into my own hands and to live it out every day of my life. You see, here's the tricky thing. While the church is an important part of your faith development and something that will walk with you and hold you accountable to that work your entire life, the church can only get you to a level 3. If you want to grow deeper in your faith, to be wise beyond your ages, to understand in this passage what it means to have all the mysteries of the world figured out, to understand all the prophecies that are to come, and not just be like the gong or the cymbal clanging in the wind, but to have weight and substance behind it, you must become a disciple outside of Sunday morning. You must choose to take on the work of being a disciple in your daily life. And let's think about this in numbers for a minute. It makes sense that the church can only help you get so far, to only get to your black belt, and anything past that you have to do on your own. If you come to church most Sunday mornings for worship out of a month, that means you're spending anywhere between 3 to 5 hours in church. Let's say you're like, I do more than that, Melissa. I have a Sunday school class I love. I have a small group that I love. I do more than that. All right. Then that's an average of 2 hours a week, right? So somewhere between, let's say, 6 to 10 hours in a month that you've dedicated to your spiritual development. That's not bad. That's a great thing. But it's only going to take you so far because there are 168 hours in a week. There are 730 hours in a month. Billy Graham, the old evangelist, right? He had this quote that he used to say, give me 5 minutes with someone's checkbook and I will tell you where their heart is. I think that still holds true, but I'd like to add something else to it. In this day and age and time where we are driven by our planners, where being busy is just a mark of what it means to be in our society, give me 5 minutes with someone's calendar and I will tell you where their heart and their passion is. Where we spend our time is how we will live our life. So if we want to be disciples of Jesus Christ, it begins here in spaces like gathered worship. It begins and goes deeper in those beloved spaces like your small groups and your Sunday school classes. But if you want to be a disciple maker, then step 1, acknowledge that this is only the beginning. We can only hand you the black belt. If you want to become a Bruce Lee of faith, if you want to become like one of the saints in our church, one of the saints we read about in scripture, or a saint in your life, then you have to choose to say, I want to be a disciple every day of my life. And when we do that, we're being very Wesleyan. Congratulations. John Wesley used to say, "Today is the day of your salvation." And he would go on to say that when we acknowledge that every day that we choose to follow Jesus is the day of salvation, it also means that it's our first day in eternity. We're not waiting to get to heaven. Eternity begins the day you become a disciple. Eternity begins the day that you choose Jesus, because with that, you have been empowered by Jesus to bring heaven to earth. And I don't know about you, but I'd want more heaven on earth. I want earth to look more like what Jesus hopes for it to look like, for good news to reign, for hope to be abundant, and where darkness and hell is present, to cast it out with the beauty of the resurrected Lord's love that gets lived out through disciples who choose to say, I want to be more than a proficient student. I want to know it all, because the greatest of these remains, and it is love.